Hello and welcome everyone to our Saturday stream. I'm Josh and this is our Fantasy Grounds map and image creation. So thanks everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We're going to be continuing on our journey today with our deep dive into the basic painting tools of the inside of Fantasy Grounds Unity and how we can make kind of classic maps. What we're actually going to do today is I'm going to take it all the way through from very conceptualizing it in that very basic kind of style, and then we're going to build right on top of it, and we'll be able to make us a nice kind of finished battle map if you so wish to. And these are the same kind of techniques that you can use if you were to ever have a purchase module, or if there's something along the lines that you've have in a pre-existing kind of scenario and you want to build right on top of it to create your own a little bit more advanced image. And in the same token, we're also going to demonstrate how you can use these built-in tools to kind of build out these classic kind of maps that you would have seen in the older kind of old school style, I guess is what it's called now. So let's dive right into here. What I'm actually going to do is open up. We don't really need our assets right now, but I'm just going to set it over to the side. We're going to create our open our image folder here, our image button, and we're going to create a new entry into our images over here. I'm going to do that by just by right-clicking and create item, and that's going to pull out our image workspace that we have here. And I'm just going to kind of drag this across here, and we can close that down now. We don't really need it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my grid space, because everything that's inside of Fantasy Grounds is based off of the grid, not pixel dimensions, not anything along those lines. It's all grid space. And it allows us to work within those grid spaces, and we can change this dynamically as we work. And it's a really great way to kind of do that. I like to use a 100 by 100 just because it gives me a really easy mathematical transition between pixels and the size of my grid. So I know that's 100 pixels across each one of these. But as I said before, this is kind of arbitrary. We don't really have that same sort of space inside of Fantasy Grounds. So what we can actually do inside of Fantasy Grounds, just for like a really quick demonstration of this, let's go into our stamp tool. And I'm just going to go into, let's say, for example, I know that the interior map pack has some pre-built kind of maps here, right? So here we have this house interior, floor 1. And so I can take this and I can drag and drop this right in here. And you can see that that's going to show me that it should be 18 by 18. That's what this is set at. So what we can actually do is, let's bring this all the way down to 1 by 1. And I could put this entire map, I'm just going to hold control so it snaps right in there. I could put this entire map right inside of a 100 by 100 square. And you can see it'll fit right in there perfectly and doesn't lose any of that visual quality. What this means is that our system is independent of the size of the image, or how that image would classically be displayed in a traditional kind of image replication on our screen. Allows for unbelievable flexibility inside of what we're creating here. I'm just going to delete that. I was just doing that for demonstration. So don't think of this necessarily as a classic kind of pixel space. It's all based off of the grid. And so remembering that will make things a little bit easier for us. And I'm actually going to lower down this opacity right here. We might change this later, but just so it's not so intrusive on our eyes here a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my stroke, and I'm going to create a new painting layer. And in my fill area, I'm going to click on this color fill. And what I'm actually going to do is we're going to keep this black and gray. We did it in blue last time we were around, but we're going to do it in black and gray today. So we're just going to click on our color tint, and all we're going to do is bring down all of these equally. So what we can do to create like a gray kind of surface here well, there's a few different ways that we can kind of do this, right? But if we make all of these things exactly the same, this is going to make sure that we stay inside of that zone. So let's make this like 90 and 90. And see, now we have a nice gray color here. So as long as these are all matched up, this will maintain a gray. The further they are to the right, or the higher the value, the closer it is to white, and the lower the value, the closer it is to black. So we're going to hit OK, and I'm just going to click over to my rectangle tool, holding down Control. I'm just going to drag out a section here, something like this, something that gives us enough space to kind of work in. And again, we're not using any images yet. We're just going to be creating this base kind of layer here. And this is going to be all that we need. And you can actually play just with this if you wanted to create any sort of traditional kind of maps that you might find inside of an old module or something along those lines. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new painting layer. This is just going to be our background. And I'm just going to click on this button, and we can just change this color now. And I'm not going to go all the way to white. The greater the contrast is, the more difficult it is on your eyes. So the lowest contrast possible and still being able to maintain what you want to see is usually the best for long-term kind of viewing. So why don't we make this something like, we'll make it 200. You can see it's a much lighter gray here, and I'm going to hit OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a series of hallways and rooms and whatnot. We're going to add them all together. And then what we can do is build right on top of that. And I'm going to show you guys that whole process today. So we're going to create like a classic kind of dungeon. So the first thing that we're going to do, again, I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to stick with just this fill element here, and we can kind of snap out to our grid like our first room here. Now I'm going to switch from my normal overlap, switch it over to add. And what this is going to do, as long as I maintain all of the same parameters that I had before on this, as long as I maintain that, this will add to this particular image itself. So we can drag out a hallway coming off of here. And this is now all one piece because we're doing an add. We can look at it here. We can see that this is all just connected together with our points here. And we can begin to maintain this exact same thing as we transition out from this particular area. Now I don't have anything completely in mind here, but we'll just kind of go with like some classic kind of elements here. We'll do a couple of little rooms that kind of come off. Let's do something like this. And one of the great things about the way that we're doing this is that we can always come back in here later and we can move these around, you see? So if we want to snap this or move this in any particular way, we certainly can. We can continue to interact with this after the fact. So anything that we want to do, so let's say for example, if we want to come in here and we want to make this more of like an angle by which this is going to connect, I can snap this right in here, and we can create all of the different types of rooms and whatnot that we might want to in our creation process. And going back into here, we can always add in additional elements. So perhaps we want to do another hallway coming off of here, and then have this connect down into something like that as well. So let's go down. We'll make another room here. And we'll do maybe like a nice large 15-foot across hallway that comes down to something like this. And we can add some additional kind of elements. Let's do some 10-foot wide places here. And we can add in, I think we'll do two little elements here. And I think what we'll do is we'll actually, let's grab this and move this back up so it's a little bit even here. We might want to draw in a wall here. Oh, thanks so much, FGA. And now we can kind of come in here. And one of the great things about doing this, especially in our early stages of our map creation, is it allows us not to worry too much about the artistic side of things and more about the functionality. And then we can build on top of this later to create that more visual pleasing kind of um, element to our map here. Nope, we don't want to do that. We'll do a series of more narrow kind of tunnels down through here. And to snap to the grid, all you have to do is hold down Control. That's what I'm doing while I'm doing this. But you can also snap to grid here, and this will do it without having to do that. And actually holding Control will be the opposite. Oh, of course, Philip. No problem at all. Ooh, base shortcuts. I'm not exactly sure if I know what you mean by that, but there's all of the same shortcuts that you would have in any of the image painting as well. Yeah, you bet. Then I think what we'll do is let's do a larger kind of element here, and we'll bring this down, and then we'll do, I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, drag this out from that center. We'll do a nice round room right down here, and then we can kind of come back in and we'll do another large kind of area here. I think this will be a pretty good basis for us here. Now what we can go into, and we'll do some editing here of our different shapes a little bit here. So I'm going to change this to an angle. Let's move this right over here and this to there. And I think what we'll do is we could add in another element here. And so the easiest way to do that is we can go into the subtraction mode and we can subtract out. Oh, that's interesting. And it fills that all in there. I guess I'll just add then. And I'm going to add in this just to create some additional elements here. Let's try that again. Looks like it doesn't want to add into this anymore. Hold on. Let's try this one more time here. Let's see if we can add in here one more time. Let's move this back to its original position. and see if we can add this in. Yeah, that works now. The only reason I did that is I wanted to have some additional oh, it looks like that this isn't quite added to that properly, but that's all right. Which is what it looks like it's happening here. Well, we'll make some adjustments here and create some different kind of dynamic elements here. We'll do some angles. Yes, each tool, but it's usually set up by tab, but also yes by the tool itself. But it's all the same as long as you're using these same kind of tools here. You'll have the same exact elements there. Um, yeah, let's change this a little bit. Make that a little bit more accommodating for our shape here. That's going to be a little bit hard to navigate though, so let's make that a little bit wider so that we have our players able to move in through that way. Yeah, I think that that'll be pretty good. Why don't we just go with that? We can actually take out, no, that should be pretty good. I'm going to switch down to here, and I'm just going to move this in. And we can adjust this later if we so need. There, here's our map. And if we go into our layers tab, you can see that it's about 37 by 36, or need to make a small adjustment there. And we're good to go. So what we're going to do now is we can build in any other sort of elements that we wish, but we can also generate all of our line of sight from this as well. So if we go into our line of sight tab, we can do it from here. So we just have to duplicate all of that as our line of sight, and you can see it'll build that exactly for us if we so wish. But we can also do it in our painting tab as well in here. And we can do it, one of the things that we can actually do is, yeah, the PCs might get stuck. That's right. And make sure you line it up with your grid appropriately for ease of use. But one of the things that we can do in this particular section is that we can duplicate selected walls as well. So if I were to come in here and I just wanted to duplicate these particular walls, we can do that. And we can jump over here. You can see that I've done just that. So any area that you want to have done, or if you want to do something a little bit differently, you can certainly do that. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility in here, but you can do exactly the same thing with this button. You can see we can duplicate the entire thing. There's just two different ways that you kind of approach exactly the same way. So we can delete this now. So now we have a completely functional map, something that if you wanted to use in your games just from this requires no additional assets, no image assets whatsoever. You have the complete ability to create totally functional maps inside of Fantasy Grounds without any additional elements whatsoever, just from the get-go. But here, what we can do, and one of the great things about this is that we can now build right on top of this because of our wonderful layer system that we have here. This will allow us to do exactly the same kind of thing. However, we can do this in a number of different ways here. So let's look at this in a couple of different ways, and we can actually do this fairly quickly so I can demonstrate you a couple of different alternatives that you can kind of create this with. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a new painting layer, and let's go into our Western Art Pack. And here we have some nice mine walls and so on and so forth. But we also have these floors, for example. Now all of these will work just like a fill element. So we can go into our painting area over here. And we're just going to replace this with one of these images here, something like this. And what we can actually do with this is we can draw out, we can do this a couple of different ways here. And I think what we'll actually do is, yeah, why don't we do, I think we'll do two different painting layers with this as well. Let's put this together in a folder, and we'll just call this base. And we'll grab these things and we'll drop them right in there, something like this. Well, let's try and actually put it on the folder here. Right, so when it creates the line of sight layer, it'll be on a different layer. Line of sight layers don't exist on the painting layer. They can be in an image layer or on their own particular layer, but they're currently not able to be attached to the painting layer. So it'll be a completely separate layer. Now in this painting area, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do the same exact elements in here, but we're just going to be adding in a decorative element around the outside. So let's do the same thing. And what I can actually do is I can either maintain the grid snapping or I can do magnetic snapping. And what that's going to do is it's going to snap to these elements as I paint things around and whatnot. I think let's just, for the moment, we'll just stick to the grid snap because this should be pretty easy for us to kind of whoop, make sure we go back into our correct painting area over here. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go over into my edit fill and I'm going to hold down A and I'm going to lower the opacity down on this. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to see that ghost image of the map that I have underneath. We can fix this later. We can adjust this later. Going back into my rectangle mode, I'm going to create a new painting layer because we're going to want this on top. And what I'm actually going to do now is go into my brushes and I'm going to switch over to my stroke element. And I'm going to grab this wall. And now I'm going to have this wall element that's going to build out. And the way that this is going to work, I'm just going to go over here and kind of demonstrate this really quickly. As you can see, is I'm going to have the wall on the outside and then like a floor in the middle. We can actually, why don't we do a different type of fill element so we get a little bit better separation between the two sides. So let me just go over here and delete this. And we can go back down to our floors and switch back over. Let's grab something like this and you can see we'll get a little bit easier of a transition there. And now we can come over in here and exactly the same way that we did before, we can just snap out to here and we're already in our add element here. So we can just kind of snap this out. We can pull this right across and you can see that's going to blend that right in with our other elements there. Let's do this line first. And anytime that has something like this kind of happens, it's fine. We can come back in and fix it after the fact. We're just basically getting all of the elements in there just the way that we want to, right? So we're just going to be building out all of these little sections, get our baseline in, and then we can come back in after the fact and move these over to wherever we want them to be. So we don't have to worry too much about all of the transitionary spaces here. So we're just gonna, you can see how quickly that you can kind of build this here. And I'm just gonna do some real rough kind of creation here, and then we're gonna switch over, and then we're gonna add in the additional elements. And after we get this one done, then I'll do another one with some of the dungeon art packs. And then we can come down and let's switch over to our circle. We're going to go right in the middle again, and we can do Shift and Alt. And as long as that's the same size, we can move it down. It's not a problem. Great. Now we can move over into our Edit tab over here. We can just grab this and snap that over. And here we have, we can either just pull this element over here, or we can delete that and clean that up a little bit. It's totally up to us. And here we can add in another element over here if we want to, just to finish this off so that we can get this all done correctly. And we can remove these points. I think we'll keep this one like this so that we don't have any sort of image interferences there. And then we can grab all of these right here and just snap these down as well. Yeah, right? Rather than trying to struggle and make everything line up. And this is why using the grid is so important. So let's say, for example, because we're snapping to the grid here, but we need a little bit more precise kind of control about where we're placing things. And here's another really good tip for all of that as well. So what you can do is always switch over into your grid system. Inside of your grid system, we can change this. So right now we have 100 by 100. So let's change it to 50 by 50. Switching back over, because all of this interacts based off of the grid, we can now snap in a much more precise manner. We can bring this all the way down as far as we wish to have more and more control over that. And in the same token, we can even interact with the system. Oh, thanks, Simple DM. Yeah, it works pretty well, right? Carl's done a great job. We can come back in and we can make further adjustments. We can add in more elements to create additional points that we need by adding and subtracting and so on. And then what we can actually do is manipulate this in a much greater way, right? So we can bring this down, maybe we want at 25. And so now we have all of these little increments in here by which we can easily snap to and make quick and easy adjustments. And we don't even need to snap to the grid whatsoever. If we want to have a more free-flowing kind of system, we can do that as well too. Let's put this back up to 100 by 100. Now we're going to click on here and let's go into this mode. And now we can bring up the opacity of this map on the outside here. And you can see we have the same kind of functionality, just with a lot of like the image-based kind of stuff now. We can do a lot of really cool kind of stuff inside of this now as well. We can actually, I would probably even maybe darken this up on the outside here. Or we could do any number of different kind of things to interact with the map to make it a little bit more easily readable. But you can see how quickly you can kind of add in. Yes, for sure. I agree. So let's do this. You can see how quickly I've done this, and then I could throw in any sort of elements that we wish and kind of build it up that way. Now I'm going to show you another way that we can kind of do this, um, and we can again in a very similar kind of fashion we can do exactly the same kind of thing again here. Now let's create another folder here, and we'll call this mine because this is our mine elements. Let's do something like that. And now we can create another painting layer here. And so this is all just hideable. Here's our base again. And we will go into our FG dungeon. And here again, we have all kinds of brushes and floors and whatnot. So we're going to do something very similar. So let's do the same exact kind of scenario that we did last time, except we're going to switch over to our stroke. We're going to turn that off. We'll grab this stone floor. And in here, we're just going to drag out a nice stone floor here. And then I'm just going to move over and continue this down. Again, we'll go into our edit fill. And we'll just lower this down a little bit. We can bring that right back when we're done kind of lining everything up here. Yeah, yeah, that's usually very true. You have to have a balance, right? If you notice when I zoom in and out constantly, and if I'm doing a piece of artwork, I stand back from it or get close, and so your perspective needs to change in order to see it in lots of different elements, right? So, and what we'll actually do in this particular one is we're going to go through and we're going to make it. We'll do all the bells and whistles and everything, but we'll grab the same kind of thing here. Let's go into our fill element over here, and I'm going to grab. Let's do this one for our stone floor. And then our stroke, we'll grab one of these like walls here. I think we'll go with something like this one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my parameters of this so it's not quite so tall here. Or because each one of these, this is about exactly one. This is not about, but it's 1 square wide. So I could either build it out here, as you can kind of see here, and kind of do that, or I can actually change the size of this so it's a little bit less intrusive on these things. And the other thing that we can do is, because this is 0.5, is we can do this at a scale that's kind of on the outside. So why don't we try that? We'll do a couple of different ones here. So let's add a new painting layer, and this is going to be our next little section over here. And again, we have it in the add section, so we can kind of create an element here. And we have it on our grid snap, so I can go right in the middle here. It's going to snap right to that. Except this time, what I'm actually going to do, see how this is got some strange kind of corners here? I'm actually going to change the corner type to miter, right? So let's go back in here. We could also do like rounded corners and all kinds of other things, but I'm going to do a mitered corner. And the reason why I deleted that is because all of these parameters have to be the same for it to add together. Everything has to be the same. So if you change a corner type, if you change a size, if you change a color, everything has to be exactly the same for it to add together. So now I can just drag this out and we can kind of do something like this. And then with all of these parameters still together, and I'm going to build this out a little bit larger on the outside to accommodate my, and that's a little bit too large over there, but that's okay because we get to change all of that as we kind of progress here, right? And what we can actually do is if I move in here, right, we can see these right here should be actually here. and this here. And this needs to move back over this way. See, we got a little strange artifact right there. So what I would actually do is maybe in this scenario, we can just remove these ones. And you want to make sure that the inside, see here, we want the inside to be of an appropriate size. And this wall is actually a little bit large for doing these narrow kind of areas. So it would actually behoove us to probably make this a little bit smaller. So why don't we do that? It goes so quickly that you can make these kind of adjustments on the fly. So we can come back in here, and I'm going to make this 0.5. We'll make it about half as big. And we can just kind of drag this out now. And now we can do this a little bit more appropriately. We don't want to do that one first because we want to make sure it all adds together properly. And we're going to adjust a lot of these colors and whatnot after the fact so that we can make sure that we have some really good separation here and everything is quite visible. And you can really see how quickly you can kind of build these areas out. And again, we'll go right down here in the middle, and I'm going to hold Shift and Alt. We want to make sure that we do it with our round tool. And boom, just like that. Yeah, you can definitely paint yourself into a corner pretty quick. Great, so now we have to make all of these little minor adjustments. We can kind of come in here and do this really super easily. Make sure that we have a little bit of a spaceway that we can kind of walk down there, and that should be good enough. And we'll kind of just go from there. Great. So now let's go back into here. We'll go over to our edit fill. Let's make this nice and opaque again. And I think what we'll actually do is we can kind of come into on this layer as well, and we can make some further kind of adjustments here. Maybe we'll make it, I think we'll make this a little bit smaller. So let's hold down Control. Maybe something like this. I think we'll actually rotate it here as well so it's more this way. I think that's going to work for us a little bit better. Yeah, that should be pretty good. And I think what we can do is maybe make this a little bit darker on the outside. So we got some nice kind of elements there. And that gives us a decent amount of contrast here between the inside and the outside. We might even want to make some color kind of adjustments and whatnot. But here's one of the other really cool things that if you wanted to do something along those lines. If we wanted to, let's say, lighten this entire area up in here, one of the easiest ways to do this, and this is a really great trick, is we can go into our effects area and we can make create a mask or create using the painting layer as a mask, right? So what we can actually do is create a new effects layer, and this has automatically created a mask for that entire area. We can go into adjust colors, and then we could brighten up all of that area. And I would blur out that edge a little bit so we have a nice little kind of fade. So a really super cool and quick and easy way to kind of do this kind of stuff. The same way as we could bring it in here, and we can make it darker, we can change its colors, do all of that sort of stuff. And again, we have the complete ability to generate our line of sight with just a simple click of a button. So why don't we go in and start to make this look a little bit more like a classic kind of dungeon. Well, actually, I'm going to take a really short break really quick. If you guys want to hang out just for a moment, I have to just check on something really quickly. I just realized. And then we'll be back and then we'll jump in here and we'll start to decorate this as well. So just hold on for 1 second and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Thanks for hanging out there for a moment. I totally forgot that I had something on the stove and I had to go check on it. I meant to take care of it before I started stream, but I get so excited that sometimes I get preoccupied. Okay, so let's dive in here and do a little bit more stuff with this. So as we kind of transition into here, we can do this same kind of thing over and over again. It's super easy to do. And I have a whole bunch of different kind of assets that you can almost pile in on top of each other. And again, by using that grid system, you can snap to the grid, you can adjust that grid system so you can fine tune things and make adjustments and do all of that stuff as you kind of progress here. But let's jump in here and start to build up some of these rooms now that we have all of our bases kind of done here. Another thing that we can kind of do is, which I should mention as well, is that we can still interact with this even though that we have the image stroke around the outside, we can still interact with that fill just as we would any of the other fills in here. So if we wanted to, we could fade out the edges a little bit. This can be really cool if you're doing something like if you wanted to do here, let me just show you this really quickly. We're going to go into back here. Let's make this quite a bit darker. And now we can come into here, and you can see that as we fade in that edge on the background here, we actually can kind of create some nice kind of cool shadows as it would appear to be as it kind of just comes in from the edges on the outside there. Neat little things like that that you can kind of do as you progress and move along here. Maybe we'll leave it like that for now. We can also adjust the colors here and change that so that it kind of fits in there. Why don't we just delete that for right now? We don't really need it. Great. So let's dive in and begin to build out some of these other little elements here. And if you guys have any suggestions, something you'd like to see me do, just throw it right in there. Cyberpunk or Fallout? Oh yeah. So I have a whole. I did several abandoned places, which is kind of like post-apocalyptic um, elements for creating all of your like Fallout kind of places like that. And as far as like cyberpunk goes, you can use a lot of like the modern and sci-fi elements together in addition to all that other stuff. I don't have anything specifically for that kind of cyberpunk genre, but there will be stuff in the future. But yeah, you can make lots of cool like Fallout kind of places. We actually built a vault on one of the episodes a while back, and there's a lot of industrial things as well. Modern industrial and abandoned places are the official art packs that I would say would work spectacularly for creating Fallout places. Yeah, you bet. I also had created a while back. Let's go into this map module. You can create these cool kind of shadow elements as well, and these will work just like this. You can kind of like build these, and I'll demonstrate this really quickly as well here. Let's create a new painting layer. We're going to go into here. We're going to make sure our fill is off, and we're going to go just with our stroke here. I'm going to make this like 3 wide, and I'm going to hold down R, G, and B, and I'm just going to make this a bit darker here. And this is just for demonstration here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag out another like rectangle. That's still much too wide. Let's go down something like 2. Or maybe even, yeah, let's do 1.5. Yeah. So here you can create these same kind of like shadows as they might come in. And again, we can just add to this and create all of the additional elements that we want to. And create these kind of shadows that are here. And if you don't want to adhere to that grid snapping, you can just turn it off. And so you can actually do much of the exact same kind of thing here. As you can see, you can create like these nice kind of like ambient shadows coming off of the walls. I would probably actually, instead of doing this with a mitered, I'd probably do it with a rounded edge. Oh yeah, yeah, we could do like a gunpowder ammo room. That'd be pretty cool. So you can kind of do exactly the same kind of thing here. Let's turn this grid snap off. And again, we'll make sure that we're adding to this, and we can just kind of come in. And you'll have to come in and make some minor adjustments here. You can see that the mitered edge gets a little bit wonky on certain things. The rounded edge does seem to work a little bit better here. So let's drag this out. Make sure you overlap or else it's not going to build together here. The right edge shadow Guess I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Which is the right edge shadow that what you're talking about here? See, it still gets a little bit wonky in there. On the right, over here, but what I'm actually going to do is we'll create that. The easiest way, I was just showing you that you can do that with a painted layer, but the easiest way to by far to create something like that is to come in here and we're going to create an effects layer. We're going to go into our just colors. I'm going to bring this down and we can blur out those edges as you can see. And then what I'll actually do now is go to hide area, and then we can just kind of pull out these sections in here. Oh, with the actual painting element, it seems like that there's a little bit. And you can see we can do very much the same kind of thing here. And I'll probably actually go into here and we can change that fade. It's maybe something like that. Yeah, that's good. Hey, no problem at all. No problem at all. Let's see. I think there's a question related to what you're saying on the start about the grid. Sometimes when I stamp a background, oh, okay. So are you saying that? Let me see if I understand what you're saying. Is that when you create a background and when you go into the layers tab, it displays a different size than what you think it should. So if I were to look at this, for example, we can count the number of squares that it is across, but if you go into here, it's like it's 39 by 40. Is that what you mean? By stamping, are you actually using the stamp tool? So if I were to, let's create a new painting tab, stamp this over here, and then you go into the layers tab, and instead of saying 18 by 18, it says something else. Well, it depends on the tool you're using. If you're using a stamped tool, then probably there is blank space on the image on the outside. The PNG image itself probably has some buffer areas. And Fantasy Grounds will take that into account because it's actually looking at the overall size of the image itself. If you're doing it with a a dragged out element, like if you're using the fill elements, then what it will actually do is overlap it slightly to take into account for the grid. So you're going to get like 3.1 or whatever it is. So what it will do, and this is how the system kind of works, right? Depends on I would have to actually look specifically at the image you have in mind, and then I can tell you. But there are a couple of different parameters that come into the metadata with pre-created images inside of Fantasy Grounds. So if we're looking at the image itself, there's another file, usually it's an XML file that's attached in that same element as the other things. And that will determine, it'll tell Fantasy Grounds the scale at which that it should be done based off of the grid system. So it'll say like the grid should be, when using this, 50 by 50. And so when you're using it in a 100 by 100 square area, it'll double the size of that image. So I couldn't tell you exactly what's going on, but I'm sure that there's something along those lines in there. You should be able to adjust it, especially in the painting. Like if you go to here, you should be able to type in whatever you wish. And if there's no transparent buffer in there, it should come out exact, right? And this is the grid size. So what we're saying here is 18 squares by 18 squares. So if I change my grid size, if we change this to 50, not 540, but 50, and we go into the stamp tool again, you can see now it says 36 by 36 because it's doubled. It's trying to maintain the same size of the image regardless of the number of squares. But I can still come back in here and type in 18, and again it will be 18 by 18. But that's only because this image is already telling Fantasy Grounds that it's expecting a 100 by 100 grid, and so therefore it's trying to accommodate that the image size, because it's still always based off of the grid system. Oh, yeah, you know what that's probably is? It's probably because there's no metadata attached to it. And the Fantasy Grounds isn't sure exactly what size to make it. I would assume. But again, without seeing the image, I couldn't tell you exactly for sure. So there's a couple of different things in there that it probably could be. All right, well, let's get in here and let's switch back over to our effects tab here, and we'll go back to hide area. And I'm just going to do some little stuff in here. And we'll just kind of get rid of. And we'll have, this will give us a nice little like edge around here. We'll blur it out all the way so we get a little fade in there. And we can also come back in here and adjust this if we wanted to make it a little less abrupt. Maybe we'll bring it down to like 45. Yes, all of the art sub assets should have all of the metadata correctly. So if it's a specific or some specific images in our packages, just let me know and I'll get it squared away for you and get it fixed. Just let me know which ones they are and whatnot. Great. So let's dive in here and let's add in some additional kind of elements in our. We'll kind of say that this is our first room, and then we're just going to kind of build it out from here. We'll create some really cool stuff. So let's go back into our dungeon art pack. There's all of the classic kind of. This is actually. Why don't we do something really quickly? Let me just show you how you can very easily. We'll even do it on the same layer because this is the layer that we have all of this stuff on. What we can actually do, let's say we want to do some adjustments to the floor or something along those lines. We can do all kinds of really cool stuff inside of Fantasy Grounds as well. And what we can do is kind of layer this right on top of each other. So let's get rid of that stroke and we'll go back into our fill. Let's go into our dungeon and into our floors here. We have maybe something along these lines. We even have like metal grates and whatnot. But let's say I'm going to grab this and we'll go back over into here. We're going to make sure that we have our normal mode selected. This is going to create a new entry into our layers image. You can always separate your layers as well. You can create a new layer, especially if that makes it easier for you to later to move around and interact with it. So you can always, and then group them together as we did before in folders, which is one of the ways I like to work a lot. But what we could do is, let's say we want to, let's put our grid snapping back on. And maybe we want to add in a different floor in here. We can just kind of drag this out and do it this way. And what I would do is, in this kind of scenario, we could just kind of come in and maybe fade in this a little bit. We can even come in and we can grab these independently of all of the other elements. So even though this is on the same layer as all of our other stuff, we can just snap this out and interact with this. Whoops. We don't want to grab those ones. We just want to grab these ones. Now, as long as we have the exact same parameters, so if you make any adjustments, and this is another thing that's really good to know, is that we can grab the information that we've put down. So we put this down, and then we made some adjustments to it. So if we were to go back into our fill element and we switch over to add, it's not going to add to it. But what I can do is I can grab this little eyedropper here. That's going to grab this, and I can click right on that, and that's going to set up all of these parameters. You see it's changed the 0.8 to the fade, and now it's going to add it, or it's going to give me all of the parameters necessary to add to this. So anything that I've changed, color, any sort of the fill rotation or size adjustments, anything like the fade, opacity, all of those things, it's going to grab all that information for us. And now I can add to it just like I would anything else. So if I wanted to add in a little bit more like this, you can see it's just going to add that right to the same scenario. So we can just come right back in here, and if I want to widen this out, you can see I can do it really easy. Let's see here. So everything that I create is set up for a 100 by 100 grid system. So I go for 100 pixels per square in the image creation process. I find that that is the most it gives you a good flexibility in the image fidelity, as well as maintaining a decent amount of lower file size. And plus it's really easy on the math, right? Everything that you do, you know it's going to be, if you want something that's going to be 10 squares across, you know, you make it just 1,000 pixels wide, and so on. Yeah. Great. And so maybe we want to do this transition here a little bit better. What I'll actually kind of do is in here, we can go and you can do lots of different kind of cool stuff here, right? We can do all kinds of stuff. We can come in here and I can go, let's go to this same kind of fill element. And we can do our own fill element on this side of things, but maybe we're going to fade it out a little bit more, right? And we're going to come over in here. We can rotate it. So it's going to match up with our other stuff. Something along these lines. And I'm just going to drag this out a little bit wider than I would expect. And we can do some nice kind of transitionary kind of stuff here. And maybe we'll fade this out a little. And lower down its opacity. And we get a nice little kind of transition here. We can duplicate that a couple of times if we want to. And we can actually go into on this side and maybe narrow this down so it gets a little bit more narrow as that progresses. Yeah, we have this nice kind of transition now from one type of floor to the next. Great. So let's add in some cool kind of elements in here. If we go into this particular art package, we have all kinds of classic things that you might find in a dungeon, altars and torture devices, coffins, pillars. You got to have like jars and things, right? Ever since Zelda, that's been like a staple, crates and jars. Skeletons, statues. We have some nice archways, doorways, things that you can kind of place along the edges as well if you want to create some kind of cool stuff like that. So for example, if we go into our stamp tool here, let's grab this. Or you could do let's add in some like pillars and stuff in this room, actually. Oh, let's check it out right now. Let's see here. Let's go to. We'll get back to this in just a second here, and answer jars, crates, and chests. That's right. Let's go. Let's see. Medieval buildings pack. Background 11. Yes, we have 25 by 25. And this is in a new um, image, you said? You create a new image? Yeah, okay. Let's go here. Let's create a new image. We'll go into our painting stamp. We'll go over here. And then you go here and it should say 25 by 25. And if I come into here, you can see we have a width of 100 by 100. We turn this on. Oh, I see what you're saying. It The actual image itself is wrong. Because now if I stamp another one, oh yes. Interesting. I'll check that out, Pete. Thanks for letting me know. I'll have a look into that. Yeah. What I'm assuming that it probably is that there is some sort of initial calculation that's off, but we'll check it out. No, it's not you, Pete. It's not you. Can be replicated. Yep. I'll do some investigation and see if we can't get that sorted out. All right, let's get back into our dungeon creation here. So I have just about a half an hour left on this stream. So if there's anything else, hey Jiminy, if there are any other things that you want to any more clarifications on, or if there's any other bugs that you guys have run into, or if there is anything else that you would like. I think that there is a cattle skull. I don't know if it's in the Western art pack though. I think that there's a cattle skull though. There's a lot of cacti. All right. So what do you think we should do with this first room? I think we should just decorate it very classic, right? This will be like the entry area. So maybe what we'll do is, how do you think that players would have entered into this particular dungeon? Because we'll start it right here. Do you think that they're gonna like lower down in from outside? How do you think that we will enter into this? You know what I think I'm gonna do here? I think I'm gonna use this stone arch and make like a little step up here. But I might want to just do it. I could probably just do it with painting it out actually, or maybe we'll do it. Do you think we should do it rounded? Oh yeah, I like coal chutes. Pretty cool. I like the collapsed room idea as well. We could do all kinds of different rubble and whatnot. So one of the really cool things that you can do now, let me just, so let's say for example, let me just demonstrate this really quickly before we kind of progress here. Let's say you want to do something, like if I were to stamp this image right here, it's not going to look quite the way that we want, right? Let's turn off our grid snapping for stamping for right now. We get this kind of like weird overlapping. That's not really what we're looking for here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go back into my fill element here. And you can use this lots of different ways. But we can put in any image in here. And we can drag this out. And you don't have to be very exact. And this is one of the great things I love about using the fill element, is that we can actually now cut off bits of images, extract a tiny bit of image from something, You could any number of different possibilities with this. The sky's the limit, right? So what I can actually do now is drag out a little section here, right? Now this is going to look terrible at first, but we're not done here. Because what we can actually do is we can move this around, we can rotate it. Let's get rid of the fade here. It's going to duplicate that image. Let's see, what are we doing here? Shouldn't be distorting it like that. Hold on. Let's go in here. Let's go back into our fill element here. Let's reset all of our parameters here. 0, 0. Yeah, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is, well, it shouldn't be doing that. I wonder if it's because it's on. See, it's distorting the image as it goes around. So let's put it on its own layer here. I'm just going to demonstrate this. So what I'm actually going to do is we'll drag out a fill like this. We can actually, probably the easiest way to do it is just to rotate it a little bit ahead of time here. We'll rotate it like this. It's very, very, oh, it's because it's not changing this, right? Yeah, that's what it is. You got to make sure that that gets adjusted appropriately. So what we can actually do now is move this around. I'm just going to move this first to its appropriate kind of spot here. We can line this up to whatever we want it to be. And we can change its size and its rotation and whatnot, but its rotation is going to get a little bit wonky based off of those particular aspects there. And then what we can actually do is we can just grab one of these and we can now use it. We should probably actually do this. We're going to need more circles, more points than that. So we're going to do it with a circle. So we can do all kinds of different elements here. So we can actually do like 2 different like step ups here. And what we can do is we can now cut this image out here and fit it to whatever it is that we're trying to create here. And we can still come back in here and we can move this around, as you can see, and it's going to maintain some of this stuff for us. So let's do something like this, and we can line this right up. Now you can do this with like full maps and stuff as well. What you can actually do is, let's say you have a map and you just like this one room out of this one particular map. You can now just take out that one particular room. I'm just going to move these up like this. To remove this image here. And now we can drop this down underneath that so we get our shadow content in there as well. So you can actually take any image that you want to and extract any part of it out of it that you wish. And let me show you again. We can kind of do this a couple of times. I'll demonstrate this in ways that you can kind of use this in cool interactable scenarios. Oh yeah, you can rotate. So things that will rotate as you move the layer around, the layer's rotation is different based on what you've done here, and that's a good thing to bring up. Um, so a stamped image will always maintain its orientation. You're just going to rotate its position based off of the position to the center of the entire layer. All other painted elements, such as lines and fills and strokes and all of those things, will rotate with the layer. They're attached to the rotation of the layer. So there is some difference in there. So you're absolutely correct. Oh yeah, we've done lots of city streets and stuff like that. Yep. But kind of like I was demonstrating here, if we go into, I think it's in this particular one. So we built this back when the Spelljammer came out. We built this nice the ship here. But if we go down into our ship element down here, we created this cool little interactable map here. And if we go into our painting tab, we can actually grab this and move this around because this is like we created this like cool interactable map, and you can scale this and move this and do all of these things with it. So you can actually use this same kind of technique to create some really cool interactive kind of things. Because what it will actually do is it'll take that image and use it as like a texture, like a fill texture. And so you can do it with any image that you possibly have. In that same kind of scenario, as we go off on this tangent a little bit, which is always super fun, let's go into a one of these full maps here. So let's say, for example, we just put out some completed maps here. Maybe there is an element to this map that we like. So this one, for example, or well, let's take. So let's say we want to add in. We really like this element here. We want to add it into this map, right? We got some pretty big kind of areas over here. What I'm going to do, we're going to add it in down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this fill with, let's do this one. And then I'm going to do a circle, and we can just kind of drag out this circle here. And what we can do now is we can move this around, right? Well, we don't want to do that. We want to go there, and we can move this around, and we can scale this down. And maybe we're going to turn it so we want the. So it's going to be something like this. Maybe we'll make it a bit bigger. And then what we can actually do is fade off the edges here a little bit. So basically what we've done is we've taken this element from this one other map and we've completely just grabbed it and thrown it in a totally new scenario. Right? We can have this like weird little grove area in here. And any of these elements like this that we think is not quite done correctly, we can just kind of come in here and move these adjustments around. We can bring this right out. Maybe we want to even pull this out so it looks like the dirt kind of. Let's drag this out too. Right? Yeah, we can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I like to use all of the different effects layers in lots of different creative ways. You can do lots of really cool stuff with them. Hey, Monkey Shine, welcome. Yeah, yeah, you can do well. You can do this with basically anything, right? So as you kind of move into seeing how the tools function and how easily you can integrate everything, everything that you've ever kind of come across or whatnot can be used in lots of neat, new, interesting ways. You could do this any multitude of different ways. Now you can certainly continue, and we can let's go back into the dungeon map pack here, and we'll start to actually stamp out. See, this is on its these are on its own layer here. Um, I'll actually move this layer up so we can be above that. Yes, they certainly are. All of the streams are put on YouTube, so you can watch them for as long as you'd like. All right, so let's jump in here. I'm going to grab some of these columns, and we'll add in a couple of comments here. Yeah, you bet. And I try to stream every Saturday from 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we usually run till about 5 or 6. I have to scoot out a little bit early today. I actually have to go to a fundraiser this evening. But anything anything that you guys run into, if you have any issues or whatnot, I'm more than happy to kind of cover on the stream. So anything that you guys run into issues with, or if there's anything that you would like to see changed a little bit, or if there's something that you think would work a little bit better, I'm actually gonna do it this way. Let's do like a column here and here, and then I'm gonna just flip it, and then we'll do one here and there. We'll make it a little bit symmetrical. Oh, that's very true. Thanks, Drake. Yeah, so the very early stuff we did a lot of like stuff in Photoshop. I showed about like image creation and along those lines, which I'm actually going to be going back in and doing some more stuff along that as well. Anybody who's interested in making their own assets, I'm going to do some best practices and some stuff along those lines. So that if you guys decide you want to make your own brushes or whatnot for strokes and things, things that will work well inside of Fantasy Grounds. Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad you're interested. That means we're on the right track, right? So let's grab some of this other stuff, and I like having a couple of different layers. The reason why I like to do that, especially when I'm stamping things out, is we can grab something like this, like a pot, and I can now just kind of drop this in underneath if I wish. And so it looks as though that this image kind of like comes up out of the area. It gives things a little bit more depth. And once we do our little shadows and whatnot, we can kind of, and we can even do some that have a little bit of an angle to them as well. One of the other really cool things in here is we have some brushes for like chains and whatnot. So we can always come in here. Let's go into our stroke here. Let's turn off our fill. And I got just about 10 minutes left. So if you guys have anything and anything else that you'd like, any questions, just throw them at me. I would say that the best thing to do is just to jump in there and start playing with the painting tools. You don't need to have images attached to them. You can just use the very basic image tools like we did in the beginning, and do different color. You can see how the different shapes interact with each other, and just familiarize yourself with them, and then kind of go from there. What we actually did in this video is let me just grab a folder here. I'm just going to put all this stuff inside of it so we can turn it off. So what we did is we actually just created a really basic map with our painting tools. And what you can actually do is you can switch over to just an actual color element, and you can do this with the fill as well. So if you switch over to fill, you can. So if you were to come over here, for example, let's create a new painting layer. You can just drag out these elements. Now the cool thing about the way the Fantasy Grounds works is that we have different overlap elements. You can create a new one, which will just make something new on the inside. But you can also add to it. So you can see that this will bring them all together. You can also subtract. So you can take away from the inside. So you can kind of build out all of these different shapes and whatnot, adding them together. And this is how the whole image system kind of works. So working with that and getting familiar with how all of those tools kind of function together. Once you switch over to like the using image fills, like texture fills, and with some image kind of strokes. And so what we did is I just went through. Let's delete this. First, we recreated it with a really simple style here, and then we recreated it again, and we did it with images. And it all takes about exactly the same amount of time. And then you can kind of come in after the fact and build on top of that. So it's got a very robust image creation, map creation system inside of there. Just learning all of those different tools and when you think that you should use them and how. Yeah, very cool stuff. And then once you get a little bit familiar with it, I mean, we definitely have an art subscription. We put out art packs all the time, and I think that we have 30 something art packs already, thousands and thousands of images. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and you get access to everything that's been released and everything that comes out. So what I usually do is a 100 by 100. Yep. And so what you can actually do is you can use the same exact techniques if you ever have an old module, or if you have bought something even from one of the other companies, and sometimes they come with very standard simple maps. You can build right on top of them and recreate them with cool images and do them for like very interactive and immersive battle maps right inside of Fantasy Grounds. You can just drag that image right in, set it as like your background, and then build right on top of it. Yeah, you bet. All right, so this is going to be the last call for questions. Anyone else have any questions? We'll be back this next Saturday I'm going to go for a full stream. I'll be here at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to run all the way till 6, which is usually what I like to do. It's so hard to um, not only go through and demonstrate all the stuff and make something with you guys, but to we go off on these tangents and look at all kinds of different stuff. Oh yeah, the old blue and white maps are super cool. Yep. And you can do all of that just in the painting tools. You don't need any images whatsoever, and you can make those right from the get-go. So what we'll do this next week is we'll finish up this dungeon map, and everything, all of the maps that I create do go up on the Forge, so you guys can download them for free. You do have to have. I only use the official art packs from us. Um, so you do have to have either the art subscription or own the art packs and actually to use them, but you do get to download them for free, all these ones. And one of the great things about that is you get to have access to all the different layers, and you can change them and interact with them any way that you wish. And oftentimes we'll do all of the line of sight as well as all of the different lighting effects and everything. We'll do that, all of this stuff in this map next time as well. Great, thanks guys so much. And if there's no other questions, we'll call it for today, and we'll see you guys next week. I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and we'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.